What if the next royal bombshell isn't coming from California, but from inside the York family itself? What if the person holding some of the most uncomfortable secrets about the modern royal drama is someone who has been watching quietly from the sidelines for years? Because right now there are growing whispers that a tell-all book from Sarah Ferguson could shake the royal world all over again. And if that happens, the people who may have the most to worry about are not just members of the palace establishment, but Prince Harry and Meghan Markle themselves. Before we go any further, make sure you take a quick second to support the channel. If you enjoy deep dives into royal stories like this, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the latest updates and analysis. It's completely free. It helps the channel grow, and it means you'll always be the first to know when major stories break. Now let's talk about why this potential book is making so many people nervous. For years, the York family has existed in a complicated position within the royal circle. They've been close enough to know the inner workings of the institution, but often distant enough to avoid being fully integrated into the modern public image of the monarchy. Yet during the years when Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were still part of the royal fold, the Yorks were reportedly among the relatives they spent the most time with. That detail matters, because despite the public narrative that developed later, there was once a time when Harry and Meghan seemed far more comfortable around the York side of the family than they were around some of the senior royals. Those connections meant conversations happened behind closed doors. Complaints were shared, frustrations were aired, and relationships were built during a period when tensions within the monarchy were quietly building. Now imagine if someone who witnessed those dynamics firsthand decided to write about it. That's why the possibility of a memoir from Sarah Ferguson is causing such anxiety in certain circles. According to reports circulating in royal media discussions, publishing insiders believe there is a genuine chance that Ferguson could eventually agree to a major book deal and put her version of events into writing. And if that happens, the advance alone could be enormous. We've already seen what a royal memoir can do. When Prince Harry released his autobiography, it reportedly came with a massive financial deal and quickly became one of the fastest-selling non-fiction books in publishing history. That kind of success didn't go unnoticed in the industry. And if a similar opportunity were offered to someone like Ferguson, the financial incentive could be extremely hard to ignore. But for a memoir to command that kind of money, it has to contain something explosive. Publishers aren't interested in polite recollections and harmless anecdotes. They want revelations, they want inside stories, they want moments that readers have never heard before. And that's exactly why the mere suggestion of a Ferguson memoir is making people uneasy. Because once something is written and published, there's no controlling how the story spreads. Inside sources have suggested that both Harry and Meghan are watching these developments very carefully. And that makes sense. A book written by someone with long-standing royal connections would inevitably revisit some of the most controversial chapters in recent royal history. That includes the years when Harry and Meghan were still working members of the royal family, and tensions within the institution were reaching a breaking point. Sarah Ferguson has never been known for carefully polishing her words to keep the peace. Throughout her public life, she has tended to speak in a very direct and emotional way about her experiences. Sometimes that honesty has won her public sympathy. Other times it has created fresh controversy. But what makes her voice particularly unpredictable is that she often describes events from a deeply personal perspective rather than a strictly diplomatic one. And that unpredictability is exactly what worries people. If Ferguson were to write openly about what she saw during the years of royal turmoil, there's no guarantee she would soften her recollections for the sake of anyone's reputation. That possibility alone is enough to send alarm bells ringing among those who were part of that period. There is also the question of motive. Right now, Ferguson's position in the royal ecosystem is far more fragile than it once was. She no longer holds an official role within the monarchy. She doesn't have access to public funding tied to royal duties. And the reputation of the York family has been heavily damaged by years of scandal surrounding Prince Andrew and his controversial associations. In other words, she may feel that she has very little left to lose. That combination, limited financial security, a complicated relationship with the royal establishment, and decades of insider knowledge, creates the exact circumstances that often lead to explosive memoirs, and the publishing world knows it. For years, Ferguson has built a career as an author, writing everything from children's stories to lifestyle books. She understands how the industry works, how book deals are structured, and how personal narratives can be turned into global headlines. That experience means she is fully aware of the potential value of a no-holds-barred autobiography. From a publisher's perspective, the pitch would be obvious. Here you have the former Duchess of York, the ex-wife of one of the most controversial figures in modern royal history. A woman who was once close to Princess Diana and who spent years inside the inner social circles of the monarchy. And someone who witnessed firsthand the period when Harry and Meghan entered the royal family and eventually walked away from it. That's not just a book, that's a global publishing event. But writing such a book would also come with enormous consequences. If Ferguson were to openly criticize members of the royal family in the same way Harry did in his memoir, it could permanently close whatever fragile relationship she still maintains with the institution. Even if she occasionally receives quiet invitations to family gatherings or private events, those doors could slam shut for good. And the fallout wouldn't stop with her. Her daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, would likely feel the impact as well. Both women have tried to maintain some connection with the broader royal family while also building their own careers outside the palace structure. A controversial book from their mother could complicate those efforts overnight. That's why there are strong reasons for Ferguson to hesitate. But at the same time, the incentives pushing her toward a memoir are powerful. Financial pressure is one of them. Over the years, there have been repeated reports suggesting that her lifestyle and spending habits have sometimes outpaced her income. Maintaining a high-profile international lifestyle isn't cheap, and without the institutional support enjoyed by working royals, it becomes even more difficult. Add to that the sense among some observers that the York branch of the family has been slowly pushed further away from the centre of royal life. In recent years, the monarchy has been trying to present a slimmer, more controlled public image. That strategy inevitably means fewer roles and fewer appearances for extended family members. And if someone begins to feel sidelined or forgotten, the temptation to tell their story on their own terms can become stronger. Another factor fueling speculation is the complex relationship between Harry, Meghan, and the York family in earlier years. Before the dramatic split from royal life, Harry and Meghan reportedly spent a significant amount of time with the Yorks. They were seen socializing together, attending events, and sharing private gatherings away from the intense scrutiny of senior royal duties. That closeness meant that the York household may have witnessed private moments and candid conversations that never reached the public. If a memoir were to include descriptions of those interactions, it could reshape how the public understands that period. One particularly intriguing aspect of the speculation centers on why Harry and Meghan rarely spoke critically about Prince Andrew during their public criticisms of the royal institution. Despite Andrew's controversies, he was barely mentioned in Harry's memoir, and when he was referenced, it was only briefly and in relation to issues surrounding security arrangements. For some observers, that silence raised questions. Why did a couple, who were willing to challenge so many aspects of the royal system, avoid going into detail about one of its most controversial figures? Some commentators believe the answer may lie in complicated personal connections and shared social circles that existed long before Meghan joined the royal family. Whether those theories are accurate or not, they contribute to the sense that a Ferguson memoir could potentially touch on sensitive territory. And if it did, it wouldn't just affect Harry and Meghan. It could reopen debates about the wider network of relationships that surrounded the royal family during that era. Meanwhile, the future of the York daughters themselves remains uncertain. There have been ongoing discussions about their place within the modern monarchy and whether they should play any visible role in public royal life. Some commentators have defended them, arguing that they have generally tried to stay supportive of the institution and avoid the kind of public drama that has surrounded other family members. Others remain skeptical, pointing to questions about financial transparency and past associations that critics believe deserve closer scrutiny. That uncertainty adds another layer of pressure to the entire situation, because if Ferguson were to publish a sensational book now, it could influence how the public views not only her own story, but also the reputations of her daughters. And as if all of this weren't complicated enough already, there's another looming development that could reopen old royal wounds: the possibility of new dramatizations of royal scandals appearing on streaming platforms. Television dramas based on royal history have already shown how powerful storytelling can shape public perception, especially among younger audiences who didn't live through the events being depicted. If future productions choose to revisit controversies involving Prince Andrew or the fallout from Harry and Meghan's departure, those stories could reignite debates that the monarchy has been trying to move past. In that environment, a tell-all memoir would land like a thunderclap. because suddenly there would be not just dramatized interpretations of events, but also a first-hand narrative from someone who was part of the royal world during those turbulent years. And that brings us back to the central question: will Sarah Ferguson actually write the book that everyone is whispering about? At the moment, no official deal has been publicly confirmed. It's entirely possible that the rumors will fade and nothing will ever come of them. Ferguson may decide that maintaining what remains of her relationship with the royal family is more important than chasing a massive publishing payday. But the speculation itself tells us something important. It reveals just how fragile the royal narrative still is. Years after the initial wave of royal scandals, memoirs, interviews and documentaries, the story of the modern monarchy remains unfinished. There are still unanswered questions, still conflicting accounts, and still people who hold pieces of the puzzle that the public hasn't seen yet. If one of those people decides to speak openly, the consequences could be enormous. For Harry and Meghan, it could mean confronting yet another wave of scrutiny over the period when they were part of the royal institution. For the palace, it could mean defending its reputation once again against claims and counterclaims from someone who once stood inside its gates. And for the public, it would mean watching another chapter of royal drama unfold in real time. Because when insiders start telling their stories, the headlines tend to write themselves.